Whether you're doing data analysis, writing a CLI in Python, or using a framework like Flask or FastAPI, how do you send emails from a Python application? That's what we're going to look at in today's video as we connect up the Resend SDK for Python to help you send emails in your app. You ready? Let's go. To get started, let's install the Resend SDK for Python along with the .env as well so we can handle our environment variables. So in my terminal here, I'm going to pip install resend and I'll also install .env. This will allow me to store those environment variables securely. Next, here on my application, let's go ahead and pull in a few things. I'm going to import OS. We'll also import resend that we just installed, and then also .env. We'll load this from load.env. This will allow us to load our environment variables from our .env file, which we'll do in just a second. Now, we do want to have a little check in here so that if it doesn't exist, we go ahead and just raise an error, and that way we know that the API key is missing. And then finally, let's connect up the API key and our Resend instance. Okay, so we've been talking about the API key. Let's actually go get it in the dashboard. So here I am in my account, and I'll just create a new API key. You can name this whatever you want. I'll call it like Python test, and I'll go ahead and click add. Now you should only see this once, and you want to store it secretly. That's why we've got that .env file. So back over my code, I'm going to create a .env file. Then we'll add resend API key, and I'll go ahead and add my API key right there. Next, let's write our function that will send the email using the Python SDK. All right, so we will call this send email. This needs to be emails like this. And I've just copied these over from the docs, but we'll pass in a from, a to, a subject, and an HTML. Now let's go ahead and print this if it's successful, and then we'll print the exception if it's not. Now finally, I just want to make sure we run this so that whenever we run this file, it should run this function for us. Back over in the terminal, let's go ahead and run this. We should get back a successful email ID, which you see right here. Now, I don't know if you saw in the call, but we're using delivered@resend.dev instead of my own personal email, but we can still actually check that the email was delivered to that testing account. I'll jump in the dashboard and show you that now. So in the emails dashboard here, you can see it's delivered right over here. We can actually inspect it, the preview, the plain text, the HTML, and then also any insights that tell us how to better use this. Now notice, again, it's going from onboarding@resend.dev, and we're sending it to delivered@resend.dev. Now, obviously, I don't want to send just from onboarding@resend.dev to delivered@resend.dev. So let's change the call to send it to another email address. So there's two things I want to change. I want to come over here and make sure I send from my custom domain, chris@waybackstore.com. And then I also want to send to myself. So this will be Chris, just to mark it, let's say at Python. And we'll do this at resend.com, which is my account. And then to make sure it's different here, we'll say, hello, Python world. Okay, so that looks like it'll work. Let's run it now. So I'll rerun the command, and you'll see that I get an error. It says the waybackstore.com is not verified. Now, why is this? Well, by default, when you first create an account with Resend, you can only send to your own account using onboarding@resend.dev. To send anywhere else, you need to add and verify a custom domain. So let's do that next. So back on our dashboard here, I'll click domains, and we're going to add a new domain. You can see here that you can add any domain that you own. Now, this is not a public domain or a shared domain. It has to be something that you own and have access to DNS records for. So I'm simply going to put waybackstore.com. Now you notice here we actually recommend subdomains, and this is really important because it protects your reputation. If you have deliverability issues with one subdomain and not another, typically mailbox providers like Gmail will only limit the one subdomain. So if you use your root domain like waybackstore.com, you could be risking all of your reputation. So we typically recommend segmenting off different types of sending. So let's do that. So I'll call this contact.waybackstore.com. You don't need to have anything living here. You just need to be able to say that you're sending from this subdomain. Now you can send from any of these regions. I'll just stick with the one that will be closest to my end users, and then I'll click add domain. In order to authorize Resend to send on your behalf, you'll need to add some DNS records. This works because while anyone can read the records, only the owner of the domain can add them. I purchased my domain through Cloudflare, so there is a one-click install, which I'll show you in a second, but you probably will need to manually install if you're not using Cloudflare. You'll see that you need to add two basic records, the DKIM and the SPF records. Now, it's important to note here that you should use the copy to clipboard button because it's truncated, so if you only copy what you can see, you won't actually get the whole key. So what you'll do is just add each of these types of records, first the DKIM and then also the SPF, so all three of these records. Now, like I mentioned with Cloudflare, I get this one-click sign-in where I can actually see all these records, and it'll show you exactly what you would need to add. A TXT record that has this name with this content, etc., etc. So that all looks right to me, so I'll go ahead and authorize this. Now, as soon as I click authorize, or if you've added the records, go ahead and click I've added my records. You'll see that Resend tries to then see if those records are live. Now, it can take a few minutes to a few hours for those records to propagate across the internet, but you can see mine has actually propagated already in 4 minutes here, contact.waybackstore.com. So let's go ahead and update here. We're going to say chris@waybackstore.com, and it needs to be whatever you registered. So here it's contact.waybackstore.com, so that's what I need to use. We'll keep all the rest of this the same, and let's just rerun our send here. Notice now I get email is sent successfully. Now we can check this in two places at this point. We can check back in the recent dashboard, or of course in my own email inbox since I've sent it to myself. So first in the recent dashboard, you can see, yep, I've sent it to myself from my own custom domain. And if I check my Gmail inbox, it's here as well. So success, right? Exactly what we want. However, there is one little problem I want to talk about now, and that is what happens when somebody replies to you. So you can see here, if I jump back over here and I click reply, it says chris@contact.waybackstore.com. The only problem is, of course, that I don't have an email account that lives at this address. So it will just bounce back for the user. So I can fix this in a couple of different ways. Number one, I can add a reply to email address. So let's do that first. So back in the code here, we can just simply add reply to, and I can say whatever I want. Now let's just say chris@resend.com because I know I can reply to that one since it's my own address. All right. Normally this would be wherever you receive emails. Running it again works. And if I jump back over here, I can now see the new message. And this time, if I click reply, it should reply back to chris@resend.com. So that works, of course, but not all email inboxes will respect that. Most will. The other thing you can do is set up resend to actually receive emails as well. Let me show you that in the dashboard. In the domains dashboard, I'll click back into the domain. You'll see that not only can I send, that's what we've been doing, but I can also receive. I just need to toggle this on. Now, once I do that, I need to add these records, contact, and then this is the actual content. I need to add this MX record. Now, this is really important if you use your root domain like waybackstore.com and you set up it to receive emails for resend. Every email sent to that domain will go straight to resend and nowhere else, not to your Gmail inbox or anything else you have set up. This is another great reason to use a subdomain so that you can just segment off the receiving to contact.waybackstore.com. This is really, really important. So what you can do is set it up this way to where when someone replies to you, you can then receive an email with resend. Now that involves setting up a webhook and a couple of other things. If you're interested in a video on that, let me know down below. Well, I hope this was a big help in kind of getting started with how to use Python and Resend to send emails from whatever application you're using. And if you use Flask or FastAPI or any of the other frameworks available in Python, you can easily integrate Resend into that. Well, thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Happy emailing.